Hey CMA buddies, let's today start with 10.3 of strategic management, and we will be talking about strategic business unit, right? So let's understand the definition of strategic business unit. Strategic business unit, we'll call it as SBU. It says part of an organization for which there is a distinct external market for goods or services that is different from another SBU, right? Certain terms we need to understand. First of all, what is a distinct? Distinct means clear cut. So it says any part of an organization for which there is a distinct, that is a clear-cut external market for goods or services that is different from another SBU. Let's understand with an example. For example, there is a company called as an HUL. Now HUL, that is Hindustan Unilever Limited, they have two divisions. One of them is for FMCG and say one is there for I would say some beauty products, right? So HUL as a whole is basically an organization, but it is basically distinguished into two different units. So you can term this as strategic business unit. So this is SBU1 and this is SBU2. So this is the clear-cut definition of it. Now let's read the definition once again so that we are able to correlate it. Part of an organization for which there is a distinct external market. So there is a distinct external market for FMCG, for goods or services that is different from another SBU. The goods or services of FMCG is completely different from the goods and services of a beauty product. So this becomes SBU1 and this becomes SBU2, right? Now if you look at this figure also, or the diagram, you would be able to understand there is one CEO, that is say example CEO of say HUL. Now he will have one SBU. This SBU in itself will have various divisions. For example, if this SBU1 is say that is of FMCG, that is fast moving consumer goods, then this is division 1, 2, 3, 4. So what are the various examples of it? This can be division 1 can be that for say atta segment. This is for say biscuit segment. This is for say some other say ice cream segment. So that's how SBU1 is being divided into. Similarly, there may be SBU2. As I said, beauty products. So division 1 may be say for lipsticks, or rather any other cosmetic products, or division 2 may be for say perfumes. So that's how you categorize. Similarly, there may be an SBU3. So I hope you understand the definition of SBU in detail. So it says part of an organization for which there is a distinct external market for goods or services that is different from another SBU. Right? Sorry. Now example can be HUL. Procter and Gamble is another FMCG. Similarly, like HUL only, which can have different SBUs as such. Now, identification of SBUs raise some important concerns. Now, what are the main concerns as far as SBUs is concerned? Managers may have to subdivide markets into many segments, fine, based on different criteria. As you see that there are different divisions, in that case, what managers may have to do it, that they may have to categorize it into different segments based on various criteria. As in, they cannot uniformly say that this is what it is. You need to categorize it. Categorize, so that can be a challenge for them. What this could do is the result could be unmanageable because there are various segments. Hence, the result could be unmanageable since it may be difficult to identify compatible basis. Basis means what? An underlying support. On what basis it's being differentiated or demarcated. Based on what? Based on competitive strategy. So sensible judgment should be made as to which SBUs are more useful for strategy making purposes. So when you are doing strategy making, you got to classify or demarcate SBUs in a proper way so that you can understand which one should be given more priority than the other one. So I'll read this point once again. Managers may have to subdivide markets into many segments based on different criteria. So the demarcation should be based on the different criteria. The result could be unmanageable since it may be difficult to identify compatible basis or the support based on what competitive strategy. So sensible judgment should be made as to which SBUs are most useful for strategy making purposes, right? Now what is the next important concern? Too many SBUs can create excessive complexity. So you cannot have too many SBUs. So there should be a cap on the number of SBUs that we have. You cannot have innumerable number of SBUs because that can create a lot of complexity in developing corporate level strategy. And an organization may not be actually structured on the basis of SBU. Hence, consideration need to be made for establishing relationship between SBUs and the organization design. So design of the organization may be completely different. SPUs may come eventually. So organization design is not based on the structure of an SPU. So you got to set up a correlation between the SPUs and the organizational design. So these are the 3 points which may be the important concerns with relation to strategic business unit. Now moving on, there are external and internal criteria. External and internal criteria that can help in identifying appropriate SBUs. So what are the external and internal criteria? One is market based criteria, second is capabilities based criteria. Fine. So you need to know that there are two criteria, external and internal, for identifying what? For identifying appropriate SBUs. One is market based, second one is capabilities based. Now what exactly is a market based criteria? Different parts of an organization might be regarded as the same SBU if they target same type of customers, right? So one organization can have a same, or other different parts of an organization might be regarded as a same SBU. Why same SBU? Because they may be targeting the same type of customers. Like for example, we spoke about HUL. So you will have a cosmetic section, and you may like as in the beauty products, lipstick, kajal, nail polish, etc. And similarly, you may have a perfume section, which can be like perfumes, it may be, or it can be deodorants. So since they both belong to almost the same category or cater to the same kind of customers, in that case, this comes under market-based criteria, because it may be regarded as the same SPU, because they cater to the same kind of customers. Example, units that offer same products to consumers through different channels. Now they may have the same products, but they may be distributing through the different channels. For example, they can be doing direct selling through internet versus retailing to customers. So they may have a brick and mortar store wherein they may be selling the same goods or services, and they may be doing that through internet also, right? Second one is capabilities based criteria. What does it say? It says parts of an organization should only be regarded as same SPU if they have similar strategic capabilities. So you can categorize different parts of the organization into one SPU only and only if they have similar strategic capabilities. So the important word here is similar strategic capabilities, right? I hope you understand the difference between both. For example, for a food manufacturer, branded goods shall be a different SPU from a retail owned brand goods, although both of them are sold to the same customers through the same channel. Let's take an example of a company called as KFC. We may all be aware of. They may be serving two kind of drinks. One is a normal drink, say for example, which is very much a branded one. It can be Pepsi or Coke or say Mirinda, so on and so forth. So these are the branded goods. And KFC itself will have their own drink, which for example, they may have a fizz, right? That's a very popular drink in KFC. So although they both belong to the same category, but they have to be distinguished, or they come under the category of capabilities based criteria, because it says parts of organization should only be regarded as same SPU if they have similar strategic capabilities. They both have similar strategic capabilities. Hence, this comes under the category of capabilities based criteria, right? I hope you understand the difference between both market based criteria and capabilities based criteria. Now moving on. The next part of your chapter talks about the difference between strategy formulation and strategy implementation, right? What exactly is strategy formulation? Strategy formulation is basically, rather we understand the difference between both. First of all, when we talk about formulation, it says it positions forces before the action. Now all the forces of strategy formulation are being positioned before the action is being taken, whereas in implementation, we manage the forces during the action. So this is before and this is during, fine. It focuses on effectiveness, whereas the strategy implementation focuses on efficiency. Strategy formulation is a very intellectual process. That is, it is a very thought after process, whereas when you talk about strategy implementation, see, formulation means what? Formulation means you're going to formulate something. So it's more of an mind-based theory, whereas when you talk about implementation, it's something wherein you already have formulated something and you're going to basically execute it. So hence this becomes an intellectual process, whereas the second one, that is the implementation part, becomes an operational process. Then it requires intuitive and analytical skills. What do you mean by intuitive? Intuitive simply means inherent, which comes from within, or intuitive does means that you are able to see the future through your own skills, and as well as it should be analytical also. Whereas when I talk about the strategy implementation part, it talks about motivation and leadership skills, fine. So that's a difference between the both. Now strategy formulation requires coordination among few individuals, Whereas when I talk about strategy implementation, it requires coordination among many individuals. So that's the difference between both strategy formulation and strategy implementation, right? I guess that's easy. If you remember these 5 points, that's more than sufficient. Now moving on to the next chapter, we'll be talking about one of the most important chapters of SPM, that is business process re-engineering, right? Now what exactly is business process re-engineering, or what we also called as a BPR? Now let's look at the definition. It says it is considered as a radical redesign of a business processes often used by companies for what? For cutting cost and to return to profitability, right? So basically when you have a practical redesign structure of a business, for what? For companies to cut the cost and to attain their profitability back, is called as a business process re-engineering. The term is re-engineering. So when I talk about re-engineering, that means it's been done again. So you basically redesign your business process for you cutting down the cost and attaining profitability. It is to be noted that BPR is not in itself a type of structure, but an effective program to implement a turnaround strategy. So it is not a structure in itself, it is only an effective program for what? For a turnaround strategy. Turnaround means completely U-turn, as in they are changing the events completely so that they are able to cut the cost and attain the profitability, right? Now there are 3 important reasons that lead an organization to undertake re-engineering. So why re-engineering needs to be done? That's what we will talk about. It says when an organization needs dramatic improvements to sustain itself and is already in deep trouble. So when an organization is in trouble, that means they are not doing good, or their profitability has taken a hit, or probably they are at a juncture wherein there's a lot of competition and they are not able to sustain. In that case, you need something called as a BPR. High rate of product failures and repetitive customer complaints can be reasons that can be causing disruption in the functioning. So what are the 2 main reasons wherein there can be disruption in functioning? One is there may be a high rate of product failures. That means their products are not doing good, and there may be repetitive customer complaints. So because of these 2 reasons, you may be requiring re-engineering. Then when the management feels need for BPR because of the problems that the organization is expected to face in the future due to significant changes in environment, both internal and external. So it says when the management feels need for BPR. Why? Because the problems that the organization is expected to face, that is the forthcoming problems that you're going to see due to significant changes in environmental. So this is more environmental based. So environmental, what? Both internal environment and the external environment. So if that is taking a hit, in that case you may be requiring re-engineering. Then it says when BPR can help organizations to be in a better position than they are currently in. So basically you see a scope of improvement. In that case also you may be requiring BPR. So first of all, if you need to sustain yourself and you are in deep trouble, that can be because of product failures and repetitive customer complaints. In that case you need a BPR. Then in that also there are significant changes in the environment, that can be both internal and external. Again you need a BPR. And if you think you can be in a better position than where you are right in now, in that case also you need a BPR. This is beautifully summarized in this diagram. Now please remember these 3 points, and if you just elaborate, that's more than sufficient. First of all, there's an organizational distress. Fine. Distress, we have already discussed 2 points. One is there is repetitive customer complaints, and secondly is there is high product failure rate. Then you need a competitive advantage. That means you need a better market position or enhanced operational efficiency. And in future challenges, this is more to do with the environment. It's both internal and the external environment. In that case also you would be requiring BPR. Fine. Now moving on, there are 2 people called as Hammer and Champy, right? This pertains to 1993, who paid emphasis on set of commonalities, recurring themes or characteristics that can guide BPR. So they have laid the framework for guidance with respect to BPR. Fine. So what are these various guidelines that they have given? First of all, for implementation of BPR. First of all, combining several jobs into one. So you need to culminate too many jobs into one job. Then it also talks about allowing workers to make decisions. So you should give them a free hand wherever possible, so that they can make certain decisions on their own. Then it talks about performing the steps of a process in a natural order. That means it should not be complicated, it should happen on its own. So performing the steps of a process in a natural order. Moving on, recognizing the processes have multiple versions and designing processes to take different account of different situations. So you recognize the processes that have multiple versions and designing processes, right? and to take different accounts of different situations. So multiple versions and designing processes which are there, you should basically try to bring it together, so that, and you should keep a track of it for what for how to react to it, in different situations. Then performing processes where it makes most sense. So you should concentrate and try to basically more emphasis on performing processes that is more important from the organization perspective. If any operation department needs a pencil in a small quantity, now this is an example, then it is better to purchase it from the office equipment store than ordering firms via firm's purchasing department, right? Now for example, you need, good example actually, if you just need small pencils, for that you need not place an order. In that case, what you can do is you can simply move on to the office equipment store and procure from them and make a payment to them, right? It makes more sense. It will save more time for you also, and maybe from a manpower point of view and even from an expense point of view, it makes all the more sense. So you should perform processes that makes more sense to you, right? Please remember the example of pencil, more easier for you to recollect. Then reducing checks and controls to the extent that they make economic sense. So you should have checks and controls that would make more economic sense to you. Then you minimize the reconciliation. Then appointing a case manager for what? To provide a single point of contact at the interface between processes. So you should have a case manager. What this case manager would actually do is, this case manager would basically be a single point of contact. Single point of contact for what? At the interface between processes. So if there are too many processes and you need a person who can act as a mediator, that mediator will be called as a case manager. You appoint one person and he would be able to mediate between the different processes when as far as the BPR is concerned. And finally, reconciling centralization with decentralization in process design. What does it mean? Or rather, we should understand with an example. It says with the help of a shared database. Shared database means everyone will have an access to it. Decentralized decisions can be made while allowing overall coordination through information sharing. So shared database simply means sharing of information. Here what will be done is that all the decentralized decision can be made while allowing overall coordination. Fine. Decentralized means many people can make from different parts of the country and that can be monitored by different parts of the organization, and that can be monitored by the centralized group. That means the top authority. So that's what it talks about. Let's have a look at this diagram and you would be able to recollect. Now Hammer and Champy's PPR principles cycle, what they do is they basically tell you about combining jobs, empower workers by giving them decision making power. Processes should be there in the natural order. Then you should adapt the processes. You can decentralize the decisions that we have spoken in the last point. It also should focus on reducing control where it is not so important. Minimize reconciliation, and finally appointing case manager. This case manager will act as a mediator, right? So if you just remember this diagram, that should be more than sufficient for you to answer the question on guidance for BPR, right? Last part of the chapter we'll be talking about the concerns in BPR. What are the various concerns in BPR? First of all, most business processes are complex. To redesign a process, one must understand it. So the complexity factor comes into the play. Then it says process mapping exercises reveal. There is something called as a process mapping exercises. You have different processes, you will map it. So for that you undertake an exercise. So that is process mapping exercise. That for even a simple business processes, example procurement of office supplies, involve complex and sophisticated systems of interacting among number of organization members. So that's why we say that it's better that you procure it from an office store rather than placing an order for that. So this is a perfect example of it. So process mapping exercise reveal that even for a simple business processes, it basically involves complex and sophisticated systems of interaction among number of organization members. Then it says many organizational routines operate without any single person fully understanding the mechanism. So there are various people working in different parts of the organization, but not even a single person know exactly how the entire mechanism rather. So that can be one of the concerns in BPR, and it runs the risk of destroying organizational capabilities that have nurtured over a longer period of time. So BPR, what it can do is it can basically destroy your organizational capabilities that has been developed or nurtured over a long period of time, right? So these are the concerns in BPR. So first of all, it's basically complex. To redesign it, one must understand it. Then process mapping level exercise revealed that even for simple business processes, it involves a lot of complex and sophisticated systems, and that may require interaction among number of organizational members. Then it also says that one single person cannot fully understand the mechanism, and it basically runs the risk of destroying organizational capabilities that have nurtured over a longer period of time. You can understand this with an example. It says a process redesign concerns, first of all, process complexity. So it is basically very complex. It says business processes are inherently complex. Then you can have a tacit knowledge. Tacit means which is very implied or which is very understandable. So organizational routines operate without fully understanding it. Then you talk about systemic interaction, which says complex interaction among organizational members, and finally capability destruction, because risk of destroying nurtured organizational capabilities. That means it has been developed over a longer period of time, so it runs the risk of being damaged through BPR, right? So with this we finish BPR. So we finished both 10.3 and 10.4. I hope to see you in the next video. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please make sure you do it. Please press the like button and share with your friends, and thank you for joining, and keep learning.